It could actually be 11 and a half hours difference if anyone's tuning in from India tonight. The reason I ask is there's something very wonderful going on. Tonight, as we approach the Christmas season, my goodness, it's only 9 days to Christmas. It doesn't feel that way. The whole month is full of a kind of a shine, a holy shine, a spiritual shine. And I must say that that's sort of the subject of what's in my heart and mind tonight, and perhaps yours too, because over Hollywood, California, there's something really extravagant going on. I think we'll have occasion to return to this tonight and mention it, but the idea of poetry is very important in religion, very important in religious life. If you can imagine a place, a study hall or something, say a study hall, where there was no poetry, in some sense of the word, I would like to think that you might feel that there is also no religion. So tonight we have something going on, have had, right outside the temple, which is Sri Ramakrishna's facing west. And about the time sunset was beginning to gather its belongings together, get ready for its horseback ride, there was the most dramatic orange glow. Deep, deep orange all over the sky. And I guess it was a scene setter. I guess it was the opening part of the play. You have an overture in operas. Even Gilbert and Sullivan, the comic opera team of England that gave us the musical comedy, it's pretty well granted that that's how we got our little contribution, our contribution to the world scene of entertainment. It's through Gilbert and Sullivan. Gilbert was a great poet, just happened to be a comic poet. And comic poets also can touch on some of the seemingly sad sides of life, always with the concept that there's an underlying joy. And Sullivan was a very good musician. So much so that Queen Victoria kept trying to get him to stop hanging around Gilbert and coming up with these incredibly wonderful comic operas. So before the opera begins, the operetta, there's a kind of a mélange of all of the tunes that you're going to hear. And as the sun sank into the sky, the buildings were there that had been lit up with this marvelous deep orange a few minutes before. We saw something that one would not have seen from Earth, as far as I know, certainly from these climes, since about 1226. That's my opening bid. A near conjunction, let's call it a conjunction, between Jupiter and Saturn. Now, most of the bulk of the solar system is in Jupiter. They don't call it Jupiter for nothing. And Saturn is a giant too. Roughly it says that you take 1,000 Earths and you can put it inside Jupiter. No, get ready for a big one. And you take 1,000 Jupiters and you put it inside the sun. So is the sun, that shining orb that for so many generations of our life on earth, people like us, and so many other creatures, so many other forms of humanoid life. If you want science and religion, tune in here. This isn't recent. This isn't in yesterday's news. It's a few years ago. There's 7 different types, 70, of hominid, which we'll call human now. I don't know if Lucy, about 2 million years ago, the grandmother generation, called Australopithecus africanus. And then there was the father and mother species. And then there was Homo sapiens sapiens and Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. I just love this neanderthalensis. He's coming on center stage again. We have here for 300,000 years a very intensively rational creature. They even know what kind of sounds Neanderthal woman and man could make by the shape of the larynx and the pharynx and all that. They drew beautiful paintings. Art, don't you see? On the walls of the caves. 60,000 years ago. This is fairly new, this realization. Not the incredible masterpiece artworks of the people of our genus and species who drew these wonderful paintings, I mean masterpiece paintings of animals and things, 30,000 years ago. Neanderthal was doing it 60,000 years ago. And they looked up at the sky. They could see the stars. And we were thinking, well, the children, they can't see the stars. Lights went out a few years ago, and all the kids saw the stars. They didn't know what. It's awesome. If I could do one little thing quickly for every child in LA, we'll say, and by extension around the world, Calcutta, are you listening? I'm sorry, I'm old-fashioned. I guess there'll always be a place in my heart for Calcutta. I'd take these children, busload them out to the nearest dark sky I could find and let them see the stars. The bespangled Milky Way, like cement. There is a native tradition that says, these are the people that are rushing to glory. That's just our galaxy. There are billions of galaxies. There are, I believe, some figure of septillion stars in our observable universe. That's why one of our greatest men, a statesman, still living, he said one time something to the effect of, the God of the city-states is an awesome God. And if you want to see this God blinking and winking at you, you go to the country. Best I ever saw was on the Navajo reservation, coming in at night. We stopped at the side of the road. We could look right up there at Sagittarius, which is the center of our galaxy. And tonight, Jupiter and Saturn are getting closer and closer to conjunction, which is, I say, I'm going to offer that bid 1226. It's the last time it happened this close. And they're really close now. December 21st, they will achieve their closest conjunction, which will be 1/5 of the diameter of the full moon. And underneath it tonight, what was just a little fingernail sliver last night, most beautiful full moon, not full moon, but moon, crescent moon, that you're likely to see ever, just underneath them. And you know, the crescent moon can cradle. It actually does, holds it like a baby. The rest of it, the dark part, in its arms. And you look real close on a dark night, even in LA with a light, pollution, light, you can see it. You see it sparkling back at you with what I like to call coruscations. Diamond-like little coruscations. Just a winking and a blinking. And that, my friends, according to our learned and angelic, wonderful astronomer friend John Dobson, he used to tell us it's earthshine. That's why I say, what time is it where you all are? Because what we were looking at this beautiful sunset was, let's say, I'm not quite sure my figures here, sunrise in Hawaii. Are you aware that every sunset is a sunrise somewhere else? So we were out there tonight looking at this cosmic phenom, and we must try to do this. I went back and got a pair of binoculars before it was altogether over, and with the binoculars you can actually see what appears to be a slightly less wide, dark part of the moon. So it really looks like the moon's holding a baby. Now here's where we're headed with all of this, don't you see? One of our most charismatic speakers, I don't know how he'd put it, but the way I'd like to put it, Shankar wouldn't mind, loves to think of Brahman. For Shankar, the great philosopher of India, Atman and Brahman are one. The infinity within, the infinity of all are one. And his idea of devotion, and he had some devotional hymns, kids, he did, is to think of God. That is much deeper than we are inclined to want to understand in the West. To keep your mind fixed in Brahman. Better than that, to try to keep the identity that you know you are. You can get that in 24 hours after coming to Vedanta. Oh yeah, I get it. I see. One shining infinity has to be everything. Therefore, I have to be that, though I don't every day feel it. And the Gyanis will latch onto that like a vice and never let go. So the Swami gave one of these wonderful barn busting, I don't know what they call it. See, my whole point is if you don't feel something, my friends, I don't call it religion. Sure don't call it spirituality. It was Lenny Bruce who said something, and I've got to get that quote for us, but something like, trying to describe the scene a few years ago, that the young people are leaving the church so they can find God. I don't know. You got to have some existential something going on, at least around here. And I suspect most of the churches and mosques and synagogues in the country, and yes, today's something like the 5th day of Hanukkah or something more. And we're lighting those candles. There are lights going on, my friends, all over the world. Peter, Paul, and Mary said, don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years through joys and tears. This is Hanukkah. Now it's a universal religious day for freedom of religion, because they wouldn't bend the knee. I have my way. You have yours. Good luck. Go well. So the Swami had just given this incredible speech from charisma. I don't care. It's not like it's an applique. That's what ministers are supposed to do. And my dear friends, that's what ministers all over this land. All over this land. That's what they do. And some lady, I think she's sitting right over there, at the end of this marvelous speech, said, Swami, where's this? What about poetry? Or no, something like that, yeah. What about art? What about that? And the Swami, who is never at a loss for words, quick as a wink, without missing stride, without changing the needle on the record, says the universe is God's cosmic poem. So it said, we'll be reading it 9 days hence. Somebody be reading it. Nobody else do. I'll jump in and make sure it's read. And there were in those days the myth, the majesty, the entertainment, the poetry, the feeling. The wise men in the east. And they followed a star. And when they came unto Bethlehem, they said, we saw a star in the east. And we followed it. Now what they should have said was, we in the east, Iran, saw a star. The Magi, it's related to magic and Maya, just like regal and royal are related. They were stargazers, my friends. Everyone was in them their days. And somehow, as we did tonight, they got on occasions like comfort out of the stars. You look up at that moon, and you see that thing, particularly with the binocular, the lights just all over town shining back at you. And where does the light come from? It comes from us. It comes from deep within your heart. And karma is such that it always shines back. It's the most comforting thing tonight. And here's old Jupes up there, Jupiter, which is related through the Indo-European language to Dios, Pitar, Zeus, Pater, Father Zeus, see? Jupiter, Q for Tuesday, huh? Jupiter seems particularly close tonight because he's happy as a clam. Oh, my goodness, what a show. And right up there about 10 o'clock, less than the diameter of a moon away is Saturn. More or less, let's say, twice as far as Jupiter. And for the first time in my life, I've seen them in a two-dimensional frame, one behind the other, not just a flat panoply. And they're looking, and like they all go and bebopping around the sun counterclockwise from our perspective, like we are. They're our friends. They're brothers and sisters up there. Because the universe, it seems, now seen to be energy. Matter? No matter, never mind. Dropped out of physics as a principle. Physics, Einstein said, in 1905, E equals mc squared, seen as from inside as energy. So here's all of this energy floating around. It's much more like an organism with all of the relationships. And John Muir himself said, hey, you know, he's a nature mystic. We were all nature mystics out there tonight looking at it. Getting uplifted. That's what art's supposed to do for you. Charles Hartshorne calls it divine beauty. Uplift. And so here they all be bopping around, and John Muir says, you catch one part of it, a leaf, a twig, a creature, and it's all interrelated in the whole. So as we go to meet Ramakrishna tonight, if we can find him, we'll go look for him in a minute, I'd like to tell you what happened today. I mean, today is a wonderful day. Today's always a wonderful day. Why? Because it's given us the opportunity, rain or shine, you know, good or bad, whatever. Think of God. Oh, you can't take that away from me. Talk about freedom. Humanity always has had freedom. Sometimes it's had sorrow. Nobody knows my sorrow. But even sorrow, though it seems like it'll never end, pain sometimes, I feel like it'll never end, Lincoln used to say, it ends. Even sorrow is predicated on the foundation of joy, because you know it should be better. So I'm going to say humanity never gives up its freedom, because it knows that it's worthy of respect. It knows its own inner dignity. And the day comes when the light goes on, we must extend that to our fellow man, our fellow woman, our fellow lifeline in the universe. You know, cousins is a really good way to start, because we are all cousins. You know, brother and sister, that's good stuff, and it's there in all the holiday cards, and that's right, that's what it is. But if you're going to realize, as I did once on the bus coming into Santa Monica, everybody in that bus is my cousin. Ooh. So the Swami said, the universe is God's epic poem. And what happened to me this morning, I want to offer you just for fun, because every day's a new day, and it's going to be. It was lovely, delicious, delightful, lovely. It was lovely. We have a young man who has a special road in life, and I told him when 40 years was certainly a possibility, it's more now. I said to him, when he calls up to share his good lives and thinking and questions with Atmatattwananda, actually, every day of the world. And sometimes I get on the phone, so I was on there today. He called a little later as well. He asked a question. And the way the answer comes out was, well, don't you see, in India, they think that God is being, with a capital B, Satchidananda. Huh? And that being is consciousness. Well, I've come to that feeling quite a long time since. The foundation of St. Anselm's concept of, I don't know, ontological, yeah. Being, existence, is, post-Einstein, we now realize, experience, energy seen from inside is experience, consciousness. And here's what my friend brought me today, the realization that consciousness is joy. Woo! The saintly Swamis, and there are lots of them, all the Swamis have a touch of it, you know, gold dust or something. Hey, they try to tell us that such and not, they're all one. They're all one when you get there at the top of the mountain, whichever path you're following up your own mountain. Hey. And they're all one. Well, today, my friends, I felt it. So let's just see what Sri Ramakrishna is up to if we can. I invite you to whatever time of day it is for you, remembering that it's someone's dawn. If you can see it in the world, we're finding it to be just a little after sundown here. You really want to get out there, for example, tonight, 5:15-ish, and take the last 15 minutes. So goodbye, sun, on your way to Hawaii. Don't you love it when someone goes on to glory and you go to a church, hopefully a charismatic, the charismatic church, and they say, when we're saying goodbye, there's someone on another shore saying hello. So wherever it is, when the sun goes down, about to, you get out there and see that blue sky and the orange clouds and Jupiter, Father Jupiter, and Saturn, just almost touching. The wise men. We have a fellow there, Byron, he's just wonderful. He calls it already the Bethlehem star. Maybe it was a Bethlehem star, because these men, that star was a spiritual star that they were following. Yeah, that may well have been an actual cosmic star, and they were seeing the spiritual intensity of it, and it was calling them, these stargazers that felt the deep spirituality of the universe. So, Myron's calling it the Bethlehem star. I can't help it. A day at Dakshineshwar. Saturday, April 5th, 1884. It was at about 8 o'clock in the morning when M., the gospel author, compiled the words of the evening or the afternoon or the morning from memory, immediate memory, photographic virtually, when M arrived at the temple garden and found Sri Ramakrishna seated on the small couch in his room. The master was talking to them, and Krishna Mukherjee was there. Krishna belonged to an aristocratic family and lived in the northern part of Calcutta. He held a high post in an English business firm. Now, you know what? Just because I like the title, we picked this one out a couple of times ago. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to dive in a little bit further into the thing. That's where we were. I just like the title, apparently. So now there, and if you remember, M got out of the boat because, it was, forget it, I never shall. Was it moment in a terrible storm on the Erie Canal, where the water was rising, sinking low, boat was sinking low. Well, M said, pull over to shore, I'm getting out. And he did. And Pankaj tried to come in, no. But anyway, they said, Sri Ramakrishna said, now my problem is, how can I feed all of you? He was saying to the ones that come to see him, I want to feed everyone. So I keep one at a time with me and feed him. Krishna, looking at him and smiling, a fine man indeed, to the master, he would not let us go till we put him ashore. Master smiling, why? What happened? Krishna, he was in our boat, seeing that the river was slightly rough. He insisted on being put to shore. To M, how did you come? am smiling on foot. Sri Ramakrishna laughed, which I guess the message is, it doesn't matter how you get there, you won't get there. In the presence of an illumined soul, the superluminary. Sri Ramakrishna laughed. Prime Krishna to the Master, Sir, I am thinking now of giving up my work. One who's involved in activity cannot accomplish anything. Pointing to his companion who was with him, I'm training him to do my work. After I resign, he will relieve me. Work, meaning office work, has become intolerable. Now, that's not supposed to happen to everybody. It happened to him. He's retiring, basically. Master, yes, work is very troublesome. It is now good for you to meditate on God for a few days in solitude. That's a key word. So I like to say, these words shine. And you turn out the lights, they'll still be shining. So we might do well to think about solitude as one of these key words. That's what everybody strives for, incidentally. Here in the city, this is the second largest city in America today, when they go into meditation, right here in this chapel, in this shrine place. They'll sit down and close their eyes. And yes, it's not that complicated. Just like reading a good book, Swamiji says you don't hear. I love the image. We use it every time, the horse's hoofs, feet of the horses clopping on the cobblestones of the street. You don't hear it anymore. And in the temple of one's own heart, every day, one can find solitude. No doubt you say you would like to give up your work. Captain, one of his devotees, said the same thing. European. Worldly people talk that way, but they don't succeed in carrying out their intention. There are many pundits who speak words of wisdom, but they merely talk. They don't live up to them. Now here's the key. Trying to live up to them. I'm sorry, I love philosophy. It's called, the root meaning of the word is the love of wisdom. Most of our philosophy teachers in America do not think of themselves as practitioners. It just doesn't occur to them. Although they're saturated, like, as I said, donut and coffee for in the morning. So it may, in fact, happen. It does not occur to them to try to live up to the words of wisdom. Socrates' whole life was an exercise, a laboratory story of the evolution of the spirit. So the words that came out of him were not just words of ideas or description or science in that sense. They were instructions to the youth, bringing out of their own very soul, the depths of their own soul and heart, the path of wisdom and the joy of climbing the mountain of God, if you will. They're like vultures which soar very high, but keep their gaze fixed on the charnel pit. What I mean is that these pundits are attached to the world. If I hear that pundits are practicing discrimination and dispassion, then I fear them. It is strong, their power. Otherwise, I look upon them as mere goats and dogs. Prime Krishna saluted the master and took his leave. He said to M, will you come with us? M, no, sir, exclamation point. Catch me going with you again, exclamation point. Goodbye. Prime Krishna laughed and said, I see you won't come in the boat. Now it gets interesting because Prime Krishna has left to go back. He's had a wonderful draft of spiritual wisdom to drink, and M stays. M stays in the environment of Dakshineshwar, this wonderful temple with many little temples. And at evening time, lights being lit in all of them and the bells ringing. Oh my goodness, a symphony of sound and love. Existence, being, consciousness, wisdom, and bliss. Feeling something. Which is what we should go every time we go into a church, be dedicated. Everybody got religion. I mean, there's no one that professes it, proclaims it, doesn't have it, so we should bend the knee. Brother, sister, go well. You inspire me. How about those people? How about those people that have their moment, their epiphany, their initiation, that feel in their hearts something called the altar call? Go down to the altar and receive God in their hearts and say, I've been born again. You've heard about the born-again Christian. You know what the folks in India say, don't you? They say, I'm a born again and again and again and again Indian. Hey, we want to get home. We want to go home. So look what M did. He stayed, because this is his home now, his spiritual place. He's a teacher, school teacher, and taught some of the boys. And he brought him over to Sri Ramakrishna. Took a little stroll near the Panchavati and bathed in the river, the Ganges, the mother Ganges. Then he went to the temples of Radhakanta and Kali and prostrated himself before the images. He said to himself, I've heard that God has no form. Then why do I bow before these images? Is it because Sri Ramakrishna believes in them? Was form? God was form? I don't know anything about God, nor do I understand him. The Master believes in images. Then why shouldn't I too? Who am so insignificant a creature, accept them. Now these images are not objects. There are no objects. That has all gone out the door, down the flood with Jamestown, with matter as something separate and opposed to spirit. They are merely reflections in different people's minds at different stages of their evolution of the infinite shining one with a face, with a heart. Swamiji says, basically, it's a utilitarian thing. I really just don't have any utility. I don't have any usefulness in the religion that doesn't feed the hungry baby and dry the mother's tear. So don't you all go getting so excited about that. These representations, these poems to God, Hallmark cards at Christmas time, we don't just want one, we want a whole bunch. Anyway, are somebody's imagination, dream, of another face of the infinite God, of a God that they can approach and talk to. The only problem comes for all of us hard-headed, intellectualistic, left hemisphere Aristotelian, analytical, Western-trained people is that sometimes their beloved, yes, God, the one infinity shining, whom they have sought to feel, well, maybe she's like this, or he's like, comes to them. I have a vision. And looks just like the pictures that they've painted in their mind. Now, I know we're stretching some rubber bands here, and I don't want to do that. This is our private evening. You're all so welcome around the world, but sit with us. We're just sitting around the fire home, folks. Tonight, Mr. Ramakrishna, there's kind of a question, does God create us in His image? Or do we create God in our image? Some used to say a deer will think of God as a grand deer. But the problem comes for the person that bases everything upon experience, whether it's her science or his spirituality, same criterion of experience. The problem comes is that it looks like it's both. So the person worships God in this form on a holy night. Huh? See, we worship God, many of us in the West, as a daddy and as a baby. Jesus spoke the common tongue when he grew up. The baby, Christmas time. In his moment of great crisis, he called upon his Father. And he spoke in his common tongue. My friends, he called him Daddy. Abba, Abba. So where it begins, where it ends. Sri Ramakrishna spoke to these these faces, merely faces, a million facets, face of God. And when he saw them, let's put it this way, what an imagination. All right, so there you go. M looked at the image of Kali, God the Mother, which was Sri Ramakrishna's chosen ideal. He saw that the Divine Mother, capital D, capital M, holds in her two left hands pretty but battle symbols, including a sword. With her two right hands, she offers boons and reassurance to her devotees. Therefore, in Vedanta, we think, as Sri Ramakrishna did, as Mother Kali is benevolent, loving, protecting. In one aspect, she's terrible to untruth, which is, after all, nothing. In another, she is the ever affectionate mother of her devotees, capital M, capital H. The two ideals are harmonized in her. That's what he's feeling. She's compassionate and affectionate to her devotees, to those who are submissive and helpless. also true that she is terrible, the consort of death. She alone knows why she assumes two aspects at the same time. And remember this interpretation of Kali given by the master. And of course, the feminine aspect of the divine in India is God immanent, God within, God in the relative plane, God who is the relative plane, who flung out the stars. Oh Lord, what a morning! Oh Lord, what a morning! Oh Lord, what a morning when the stars begin to shine. Mother is the relative plane, the cosmos. He said to himself, I heard that Keshav, the great preacher of his day, Queen Victoria went to him, accepted Kali and Sri Ramakrishna's presence. He didn't think he needed that when he came to Sri Ramakrishna. God to him was impersonal, you know. And then he met Sri Ramakrishna. Is this, as Keshav used to say, the goddess, all spirit and consciousness, capital S, capital C, manifesting herself through a clay image? And returned to the master's room and sat on the floor. Sri Ramakrishna offered him some fruit and sweets to eat on account of trouble in the family. M had recently rented a house in another section of Calcutta near his school. His father and brothers continuing to live in the ancestral home. But Sri Ramakrishna wanted him to return to his own home, since a joint family affords many advantages to one leading a religious life. Once or twice the master had spoken to M to this effect, but unfortunately he had not yet returned to his family. Sri Ramakrishna referred to the matter again. He just wanted to take a room in a motel, you might say, you know, for a little solitude. Ah, Master, tell me that you're going to your ancestral home. Very appealing to have Sri Ramakrishna speak to you like that. And I can never persuade myself to enter that place. Master, why? Your father is making over the whole house. M, this is heart to heart, right? This is when you're very vulnerable, when you pour out your heart and soul to the master. I've suffered too much there. I can by no means make up my mind to go there. Whom do you fear? All of them. Master, seriously, isn't that like you're being afraid to get into the boat? The midday worship and the offering of food in the temples were over. The bells, gongs, and cymbals of the arati, the evening vespers, were being played. And the temple garden was filled with joyful activity. Again, the divine beauty, the bliss. Being is consciousness. And consciousness, love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God give you good cheer. Beggars, sadhus, and guests hurried to the guest house for the noonday meal, carrying leaf or metal plates in their hands. M also took some of the prasad, the blessed food from the Kali temple. Sri Ramakrishna had been resting a while after his meal when several devotees, including Ram and Gorinda, arrived. They sat down after saluting the master. The conversation turned to the New Dispensation Church of Keshav Chandra Sen. Now this was kind of like big happenings in Calcutta. Because frankly, Indian religion, it seems, the more you read about it, beginning to slip away. British were certainly eager to see that happen. The Western mind is such, maybe lots of people feel this way, that they'll set up a church and want everybody to come there. Oh, telling the other preachers in town, other temples, other churches. Spanish did it. Maybe you're all aware that the true shrine, Guadalupe, in Mexico, where was it? I used to remember the name, Juan, Indian man, had the vision of Mother. And she was his mother. His mother, Indian. And then that happened. The bishop didn't believe him, but that happened. And he brought back something to kind of convince the bishop. And it's a shrine which changed the whole direction of the ship. It did, in the Western Hemisphere. That ship which is called the Church Universal. The church of immemorial time that started when Peter and Paul went to Rome. From the religion of the Spanish soldier, father, to that of the Latino mother of God. I'm not going to say it's different night and day. You probably need both, but nevertheless, the religion Latino and the religion, let's say, of the Irishman, which kind of took over the church, didn't it, for a while? In this country, very different ways of looking at the world. And the religion of the Latino is a religion of love and sanctuary and support and sustaining from within. John Dobson pointed out that when you experience God within, infinity within, it's joy. And when you experience infinity without, it can be awesome, as the kids all say in Kentucky these days. I encourage us all to bend the knee. As Vivekananda said he did and would do at every church. He said, bend the knee in the Christian church. I would consider you all bending the knee at the heart of Mary, inside the heart. My friends, inside the heart of every Latino that calls herself spiritual and goes to, or dad, or children. If you want to find God, go to the altar within the heart of the Latino for whom the Virgin of Guadalupe, mother, Indian mother, and that was on the site of a previous mother worship place of the American, and that's the point. So here you get these churches in Calcutta, this big church with basically the English God. He's your daddy. He loves you. You love him. But he's really, you don't really see him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, most folks say that God is either without form or invisible something. He's God, all right. He's daddy. But even Moses, who had an interview with God, came down from the mountain and wist not that the skin of his face shone. He only kind of had a glimpse. So here's the British, Episcopalian, whatever you want. God is being worshipped in this Indian church in Calcutta with Keshav Chandra Sen. You see what I'm saying? And they've got this whole kind of on-the-shelf religion now of India, which was revitalized by the coming of Sri Ramakrishna. And it's no joke. Let's try to face this tonight if we can, each in his and her own way. But it's no joke. that Sri Ramakrishna, who was a superluminary in the ilks of Buddha, we'll say, picked out, chose as his own chosen ideal. The way he would direct his emotions, his anguish, his yearning, his desire to see God, to feel the presence of God, to see the living spirit in the statue and in his own heart. And as they say, to walk with God. It's part of the stepping stones, the ladder to infinity. As mother for the new millennium. That's no accident. Do you mind? I'm just a simple country boy. I hope it doesn't step on anybody's toes. Yogi Berra. You know, I think of what you call it, baseball, as being theological, you know what I'm saying? The Sermon on the Mount, all these things. Yogi Berra, he was sitting there, cross-legged one day, high school, and his chum said, called him Yogi. He said it was too much of a coincidence to be coincidental. Eventually, incidentally, you know, that statue became living to him. And eventually, yes, he went on to fields of glory, where waves of love surrounded him, became part of his being, and live and move and have our being, and he became love itself and light itself and infinity, one with the shining infinity. And God immanent, yes, even in the inspiration of the cosmic poem, epic poem, of seeing the moon shining back at us tonight with little diamond coruscations from the earth shine in relation with Jupiter and Saturn, our family, celebrating the joy of a new coming year with opportunity to think of God in it. So, Ram says to the Master, sir, I don't think that the Navavedan has done people any good. If Keshav, now here's one of these dialectics going on, we'll leave it here soon, but if Keshav himself was a genuine man, why are his disciples left in such a plight? I don't think there's anything at all in the new dispensation. It's like rattling some potsherds in a room and then locking it up. People may take it to be the jingling of coins, but inside there's nothing but potsherds. Outsiders don't know what's inside. Master, there must be some substance in it. Otherwise, why should so many people respect Keshav? Keshav became one of his dearest disciples. Hey, Arjuna, Krishna comes to mind. Anybody hadn't kind of dipped into the Bhagavad Gita lately? I'm going to tease you a little bit for fun. I recommend you do that right now. We've been going through something in this country, and even around the world. I'm not talking about the virus right now. We're in a struggle for the soul, where it lies. What is the soul and spirit of a country? We thought we knew. All people are created equal, endowed by their Creator, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So, such a thing, he says, as Keshav's grand ministry, attracting Queen Victoria, cannot happen without the will of God. And then Keshav came and met Sri Ramakrishna, heard about him, and he was the one to kind of proclaim him. Something's going on here. And he finds himself against his better judgment, against his will, falling at the feet of this musician, this songster, this dancer, Sri Ramakrishna. weeping tears of great joy, in love with God as well as the Father and the Son of the universe and the universe, the Mother. In these days in our world, Hanukkah and Christmas approaching, Holy Mother's birthday, may I wish you the prospect of a sunrise, of a great year, of joy and blessing, yes, and feeling something. Experience, subjective experience within. You know I love that song. God bless us all, both great and small, and bring us Christmas cheer. We used to sing as little kids in the big theater. I used to say theater from Southern Illinois, New York, on the east side, Heckscher. And we'd all come and hold hands and come to the front and the back, and Mrs. Walton, English lady, one of the founders of the school, singing it with us. And bring us Christmas cheer. God bless us all, both great and small, and bring us Christmas cheer. God bless us all, both great and small, and bring us Christmas cheer. God bless us all. Well, there.